first new feature we're going to look at for Revit 2020 is the ability to import PDF files. This has been a long requested function and one that I'm sure will make a lot of people very happy. So this comes in as part of an image now. So under the Insert tab here on the import area, we've got a PDF option. And when selected on here, we can go and browse to find our PDFs. If we select this one here, we can see if it's a multiple page one, we can choose exactly which page we want to bring in. Alternatively, if it's just a single page one such as this, then it just gives us that one option, obviously. We can choose a resolution. So at the moment, I don't have any specific recommendations around the resolution, so I would tend to err on the side of caution and just go one down from the top. Somewhere around the 300. And essentially all we're then going to do is just say OK to it. And it's just going to be attached to our cursor so that we can just put this down into our workspace. As I say, it comes in just like an image, so it's just going to sit there. We can obviously move it around as need be. With it then selected up on the top, we've got our Enable Snaps option. So this is something we're likely to want to have enabled all of the time. And then over in the properties here, we've got our options here so we can see the scale of the PDF and the fact that the proportions are locked. It's scaled at 100 by default, and that's purely because the view that we're bringing it into is set to a scale of 1 to 100. So if we need to change the scale of this, there's two ways we can do it. So if we know it's printed to a 1 to 50, then we can just select it and we could change that to 50. And then that will rescale this accordingly. Alternatively, we can use the normal sort of scale tool. And again, just with it selected, if there's something that we know the size of, so we've got some dimensions across the grid in here, we can just use the scale tool. We've got our snaps enabled, so we can snap from grid line to grid line, and then we can type in what size that actually needs to be in the real world and get this scaled up accurately. Right, let's pin that in place, which is obviously a recommended thing once we're going to work with it. So now we have it in place here. It's enabled as vector data, so we can snap to it. Unfortunately, we don't have access into any of the layers as yet. Maybe that will occur in a future release. So this is just treated as an image rather than as it may be inside of AutoCAD or something like that, where we could actually switch on and off individual layers. So that just means that if we're inside our visibility graphics, then again, we don't see it in the imported categories. It's just treated as a raster image. So if we untick the raster image, then we can see that disappears. Once it's here, we can snap to it. As we say, we've got the enable snaps switched on. So it's quite easy then to come along, and if we need to start drawing some walls in, we can come and once we've got a wall type that's going to suit, then it's not a problem to come down and actually physically start snapping to the PDF. And assuming we get our settings right, we can actually come and use our pick lines tool and snap to the line work inside the PDF itself. So assuming we trust the PDF, of course, but we can see that we can quite quickly start to trace this out and start to remake our drawing. So again, we've always had that sort of question if we've just got an existing building and we don't have a CAD drawing of it, we've just got PDFs, then we can still actually do something with these, and this is going to prove to be quite a popular tool, I think. So a few little notes on it. Once it's here, it's view specific. So that means that if we do go into 3D, then we're not going to see it. We're just going to see the model that we've placed in. And also, if we need to manage it, well, we just need to use manage images. Okay, so it falls in line with the manage images. It's in here. This box has had a slight tweak in that we've got a place instance button in here. So if we do go and add an image in, we can always place another copy of it into another view. But importantly, we've got the reload and the reload from, so that if we do get an updated version at some stage, we can actually go and update it. We don't have to delete it and completely replace it and go through all of the positioning and setup again. So that's still quite a useful thing in here. Obviously, we've got the delete option as well. So in summary, that's I think will be a popular feature. It's something that we've been wanting and asking for quite some time. So really good news that we've got that into our new 2020 release of Revit. The next feature we're going to look at in Revit 2020 is the path of travel analysis. This tool enables us to plot the path between 2 points of our choosing within the building. It's going to be useful for things like fire escape routes, and in plotting these, it automatically does the routing for us and then works out the time it's going to take to travel along that path. So it's quite a useful tool. We often need to show our escape routes on plans and things, so it's going to save us some time and be quite useful in doing that. So let's tidy this view up. Actually, let's duplicate this view first and then create and tidy it up for us. So let's hide some of these things off just to make it a little bit easier to see what's going on. And then our path of travel analysis is on the Analyze tab at the end here. So once we click onto that, and we can see what it's using is just a standard line style. So we've got all of our line styles to choose from, plus this dedicated one that it gets put in by default. So just before we do that, I'm going to go customize that a little bit. So let's go to our Manage tab and go into our line styles. I'm just going to find it. And I'm just going to change it to red because I think that's going to look better, and also make it a dashed line. So we'll go back and launch our tool. So path of travel analysis, we've got our line style in there that we chose, and it's as simple as just choosing where we want to start from and where we want to finish. So from this room over to this fire escape door. And once we've clicked that, it goes and works out the route to get from one place to the other. We can obviously then snap to that and maybe have an alternative out to this one here. And again, it just follows that through. So you can see how simple it is to use. We're just sort of saying start here and finish down here. And it's going and working those routes out for us in a very, very simple tool. What it would do is it's looking at what's on the screen. So I can see here as it's running through this room, we've got these sort of tables laid out, and it's working its way around the tables. And the same, it's avoiding any furniture in here. And as a sort of proper example, if I do it from this corner out to here, and again, it's going to wind its way around the furniture. We may not want to take account of the furniture when we're doing this kind of analysis. It might not be relevant. So we can choose really what it actually sees as an obstacle. And to do that, we just need to go into our analysis options. So the route analysis settings here. And we can see we've got all of the categories in the model here. And obviously doors is unticked. So, that's how it's working out that it can go through the doors, obviously. But we can come down, we could untick the furniture as well. And then when we say OK to that, we could just come and update this. And it's just going to ignore that furniture now. So again, if I grab these two in here and update, they're just going to ignore the furniture as they go through. The alternative would be to just hide the furniture, because obviously in a plan, it doesn't look so good that we're crashing straight through it all. So we can just hide that furniture out. And then again, same process. We just need to grab these things and update them. And then it will ignore, obviously it will only take account of what it can see on the screen. And obviously it's still ignoring our doors. So that's a good feature. If I select one of these lines now, over in its properties, we can see the speed. So this is hard coded in, and we can see the time it's going to take to travel along that path, and also the length of that path. So now if we want to annotate that onto the plan itself, we can just use our tag by category. That's a nice simple way to do it. And then as we go over each one of those, it's going to place a tag on. And if we've got sort of two in there, if we've got two routes for this to get out, we can sort of tab between those, so we can grab that one and then just tab it through to grab the other, and obviously move these around to suit. We can identify these things so they have a mark parameter. We can obviously add our own parameters onto that, so we could sort of run through and give these numbers. We can sort out the room names and things like that on there as well. But then last thing we might want to do is just to come through and generate a schedule. So again, once we get into making schedules, we can see that we can now see lines in here and path of travel lines specifically as an object type. And then that comes through and it brings up our parameters in here now. So we could add the mark, we could add the length and the time. And then if we just make sure that our length is set up to display in meters, then that's going to be a bit better for us. And then we come and get our schedule in here, showing our paths with the length and the time taken to travel along that path. So that's our path of travel analysis. Obviously, it's ideal for showing fire escape routes, but it could be used for many things. If we need to plot the path, maybe it's to accessible facilities and things like that, then it's just a useful tool in there for plotting that out. They're view specific, so they're placed on this view. We can therefore create duplicate views and have different routes or different paths. We can use different line styles if we want to sort of show them for different purposes. So I think it's going to be a useful tool going forwards, and I hope you find it beneficial to yourselves. The next feature we're going to look at in Revit 2020 are the elliptical walls. Using the standard wall tool, we now have the option to draw ellipse and partial ellipse within our sketching tools. The ellipse we just create using two radius, so our first and secondary radius to set the overall size and shape of the ellipse. With the partial ellipse, we're drawing it more like an arc, so a straight line, and then setting the secondary radius. Once created, they act as standard walls, with the full ellipse being made from two separate pieces, and we can start to use all of the standard modifying tools, so trim into corner, being able to extend or trim back to shapes, other walls, grid lines, whatever we need to do there. We can also use the grips, so we can drag it a little bit more by eye, and it also works with things like the tangential arc tool. So by choosing that and clicking on the end of our ellipse, we can get a tangential arc coming off of there. So this shows that we're going to make this quite straightforward to integrate into our designs, and we can get some more organic shapes and have things looking a little bit more dynamic in our design without having to resort to tricks and masses quite so much. These tools also work with the curtain walls. So if we have a look at this in 3D, we're just going to use our scope box to crop this out, which is another nice feature that's come in recently. So we can see our elliptical walls in here. Not a problem to grab one or two of these and actually just swap them into being a curtain wall. And then these are going to work like standard curtain walls here, so we can adjust the number of panels that we need to suit. With the panels being faceted in curtain walls, increasing the number there will just allow it to follow the curve of the ellipse a bit better and give us a nicer result. We can also insert openings, so again, not a problem to go grab a door, whatever side type of door we need, and put that into the ellipse. And the same with things like doors in the curtain walls, we can use our grid lines. So let's just do one segment in here. And then we can grab the panels and swap those out for our curtain wall doors as well. So overall, it's a good improvement to the wall tool, being able to use the ellipse. Hopefully you'll find this of benefit in your designs too. The next new feature we're going to look at in Revit 2020 are some changes around the way the elevation of objects is displayed and annotated. Most objects, when they're placed, they normally relate to a level. So this piece of casework here relates to level B1, and it has an elevation value, so which is now described as elevation from level, as previously it would have been just elevation. And this really does indicate that this is the height above the level of this object here. And also, if it's a hosted object, it has the offset from host as well. So this is hosted on the actual floor itself, so the two values are the same. But when we get to some of the objects that are maybe hosted on walls, so for example, things like this telephone point down here, it refers to the schedule level and then an elevation from that level. So that's the height above the level. But then we've got the host, so it's hosted on this wall here. And then we've got an offset from that host, which obviously it's on the face of the wall at the moment. But if we change that, we can see it moves away from the actual wall itself. So the height above the level, the elevation from the level, and the offset from the host. Slight changes in terminology. Hopefully it clarifies that for us. But what's also very useful is that we're now able to get this information into schedules and also display it on tags itself. So this doesn't apply to all objects in Revit. It's mainly around the MEP objects, the mechanical equipment, lighting, communication, electrical fixtures, etc. But from a architectural design interiors point of view, it also applies to furniture and casework and generic models and specialty equipment as well. So it's useful to those people that are needing to display heights of furniture, heights of shelving, heights of joinery, etc. And we can use those in schedules and also, as we say, tag this in the view itself. So from the scheduling, it's nice and straightforward. We just go and create ourselves a schedule. I'm going to use a casework schedule at the moment. And straight away there, we can see the elevation from level. So let's first get our room name. And then from our casework, we can grab the type mark. So let's do this in order. And then the elevation from level. And then we'll just sort it according to the room. And then saying OK. We get our schedule coming through, so we can see the different rooms there. We can get the type marks of all of the different bits of equipment. And then the elevation from level coming through. So obviously 0 things are actually coming from the level itself. But then some of our cupboards got 100mm plinth below that, and then the wall cupboards we can see coming through the height of the worktop, etc. So that's going to be quite useful. Equally, to tag that, we just need to go and create ourselves a tag. So let's go and do that. We'll create a new annotation symbol. We'll start with a generic tag. So let's swap this out so it's going to work for our casework. And then coming in here, we just need to delete this piece of text out. And then we can come and put the labels in. So first part of the label, we're just going to put the type mark. And then for the second part in here, we'll come and get the elevation from level. And then we're just going to customize this a little bit. So we'll put our FFL on here, put our suffix in. And then if we give this a more meaningful sample value, we can start to see what this is going to look like. I'm just going to come and make this one a little bit smaller. So let's duplicate that out. And then just adjust its position slightly. So now we can save this. We'll just call it our case tag 01. And then we can load it into the project. So I would normally use the tag all functionality for this. So we've got our casework tag here. We can just say OK to that. And that's going to get those placed around Obviously we've got a few overlapping ones here, as we always do with this. We just need to move those around a little bit to suit. But we can see that we're getting our level, our elevation above the level coming through into our tag here. And that's kind of a really useful thing. Just to quickly show it on the electrical objects as well, let's do a tag all again and then choose our electrical fixtures. And again, we can see we're getting our cooker outlets, our socket outlets, our switches all coming through with their tags on, and that's showing our FFL level as well. Let's move that one around. So I think that's going to be of benefit to us in Revit 2020. It's going to allow us to automate those heights rather than having to manually type those in, and also being able to tag that on plans as well is going to be of benefit for our drawings and hopefully reduce the risk of getting things in the wrong place when it's on site. So the next feature we're going to look at for Revit 2020 are the enhancements to the filters. In the 2019 version of Revit, we got introduced to the option for creating complex rule filters that can have the or as well as the and rule applied to them. This means that basically we can set up something a bit more complex here, such as looking for doors that are under a certain width, and assuming that they're not described as being a riser. Or of course, if they're as an option, we could say, or if their sill height doesn't equal 0, then again, we don't really want to process any of those and get those into our filter. So we can build up a complex filter here. What we've got for our new 2020 version, so let's go ahead and make a new filter here. So we're going to make one for some glazed panels on the elevation behind us. We come through and we want the curtain panels. I'm looking for the doors as well. So we want a variety of objects that are containing the glazing within the facade of our building back here. So 3 different objects we're looking for. We want it to be an or rule. And now our first one here, so this is where our new feature comes in. So we can now choose this rule to look for specific object types. So of our 3 objects selected, we can say we were looking for curtain panels specifically. And now we have all of the parameters for curtain panels available to us. I'm just going to go through and use the description for there, and we want that description to equal glazed. We can add the next rule in, and this time we can come and look for our doors. These doors, we're going to see, again, we can see all of the properties for doors. So we've got all of our things like the head height and the function and everything else in there. These are parameters specifically for doors. So we're going to choose the function, and we want that to equal exterior doors. And then we're going to add in for the windows, and we need these to be the actual external windows, the DTC windows that we've got here. So we're just going to look for the type name, and that's going to equal this one just here. So we've built up this filter. We've got 3 rules. They're or rules, so curtain panels that are glazed, or doors that are exterior, or windows that are this DTC window panel. So that's our filter that's up and running and working. So we can go into our visibility graphics now and add that filter onto the view. And now we can come along and start to customize the way this looks. So we're just going to add a pattern over the top. And we can use our nice kind of foreground and background patterns in here now. So let's set the color of these, and then we'll put a solid blue color on the back. And then once we apply that, we can see that that will go through and pick out the curtain panels, the windows, and the doors that are making up our glazed panels in here. There are many other uses that we can think of for combining the filters together. So this should sort of save us the need to make lots of filters to achieve the same result. Hopefully within the one filter we can combine different objects together and look for different properties, and then we can control their visibility or the way they're displayed. And I think that will be a huge benefit to us going forward. The next feature we're going to have a look at in Revit 2020 is the ability to copy and paste legend views between different sheets and also back into the same place if we need to do that. In previous versions, to place a legend onto multiple sheets, we would have to place it on each sheet individually and then go and position it, which can be quite a time-consuming task, or we might need to resort to some kind of scripting or plugin to automate this for us. Whereas now in 2020, if we've got ourselves a legend view of some kind, we can go into one of our sheets and drag that legend on and get that into the position where we want it. So let's turn the title off of that. And we can organize that and shift that around as we need it. It's then quite simple just to select it, copy it to the clipboard, and then we can come down and we can go one view at a time. So we could go to the next sheet and just paste that into the current view and do that one at a time. Or we've got to paste a line to selected views, which is a little bit quicker for us. So we've got 5, 6, and 7, so we can just select all of those there. And then that's now positioned on the same place on those sheets. So that I think is going to be quite a productivity bonus for us. Quite a quick thing to show, but we can see that that's going to help us out and save us all a lot of time in the future.